Welcome to your weekly reminder that only dead fish go with the flow. This week we're going international with our first non-UK representative. I guess that's the right sort of terminology. We have Nikoline Laidlaw, part of the Danish Olympic women's eight from the Paris 2024 Games. Welcome.
Thank you.
Do you want to,
What a
yes, you're
nice
welcome.
introduction.
It's weird. You get more used to it, but it is weird to start off with. You were part of the Danish women's eight that just competed in the Paris Games last summer. Can you believe it's been basically nearly a year that you guys were out there racing?
No, I really can't. This time last year, yesterday we just landed in the Olympic Village and we got to see everything for the first time. That was really exciting. And I can't really quite believe that it's only been a year since we were there and since we competed. Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing now? A year snapshot forward.
Well, I chose to retire the ripe old age of 29, and I'm now doing the corporate life. I just started this past week a job at Amazon, and I feel like I'm not the only rower that's doing that. There's four other rowers, all British though, that are also working in Amazon, and potentially there's going to be six of us there. So yeah, corporate life for now.
That's cool. That's nice that there's lots of you guys there, and it's not just baptism of fire, just straight away hang your oars up and then just like get on a 9 till 5.
No, it took me a while as well. I'm not gonna lie. It took me, well, until now, until a year later, I'm finally in an actual job. Before I was just doing part-time, but now I'm here in Britain again. I'm half Scottish. I didn't mention that, but I am half Scottish, so yeah, I chose to come back to the UK.
Awesome. Could you name and explain your sport for us?
Well, I'm a rower, and we are a unique group of people who absolutely love hurting ourselves mentally and physically, and then being like, let's do it again the next day. It's a weird sport, but I wouldn't have changed it, like my journey in doing it, outside of the fact I find it really funny because it's a sport that if you ask a rower, should I start rowing? They'll often say, no, don't do it. Like, don't do the sport because it's a weird sport.
So we've actually done a little bit of training together or a little bit testing together. So rewind back to 2017 because that was actually also quite a not controversial, but we were both doing some testing for the GB national team, like the under 23 national team at that time, because we were babies at that point, 8 years ago now. And I can't really remember how it went about, but you were sort of in the UK 1 minute, and then the next minute you're like, I'm in Denmark. So could you would you mind like talking through Nicolina's early career?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of controversial. I had initially trials for GP, I think, from 2015. I mean, 2015, I was a baby. I was way too new for the sport. And 2016, I was advised to switch schools, which I did. And then 2017, I was in that selection process for a while, right? I don't know if you recall. And then it was, I think, the close to the last cutoff, and I was cut. And previous to that season, I had two Danish girls on my university team who had been trying to convince me to switch to Denmark from the start, all the way back. They wanted me to not even come to GB that year and just go to Denmark. So once I got cut, I genuinely just messaged them like, hey, I've been cut. Like, I just want to let you know I won't see you guys this summer at U23s. And then one of them goes, hey, they're trying to make a U23 8. Do you want to speak to the coach? Okay. Let me speak to the coach. The coach calls me and he goes, it's not that it's a definite spot for you, but there isn't that many because Denmark's very unique. We're good at rowing, but we don't have that many rowers.
It's not a
Um,
big it's not a big pool.
It's really not, we don't have university rowing. And I think that's a massive thing because Holland and GB, you have big university rowing that feeds into the national team, whereas in Denmark, we don't. And we're only a nation of 5.8 million. Anyway, we have a conversation, and he basically informs me the spot is mine if we're fast enough as a boat. And I still had to seat race into it because there was between three of us for two spots. But they would try me out, and then we'll see what happens if I could get to Denmark the next day. And I got on the flight the next day and trialed, got on the 8, and we placed 5th, actually beating the GBA, which I'm like super stoked about. But we also doubled up, like our pair and our 4 was also in the 8. So yeah, we didn't have the numbers. But that was my first time with Denmark, and then I just rode the wave and stayed with them.
That's mad.
Yeah.
What was the like turnaround? Was that like under 24 hours?
Yeah, it was very quick. It was under 24 hours, and it was the selection process I don't the selection process happened, I think, like 3 days after, and then we had 2 or 3 weeks before U23s. So it was just very, all of it was like boom, 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 went very quick. Um, I could barely speak Danish. I'm not gonna lie. I had to learn Danish in my time when I've been a Danish athlete. I still get a lot of shit from my Danish uh, on a constant daily basis. It was such a quick turnaround, and I took a gamble, and it did pay off in the end. Took a long time for the return to happen, but it paid off.
That's so cool. I didn't realize it was like, I mean, I remember you sort of being there and then one day you weren't, and I was like, I don't really understand what's going on. And then I like obviously saw your social media and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Very fortunate I have two like dual nationalities. Very fortunate that I had that. But yeah, it was such a quick turnaround. It was quite wild.
Could you tell me about the best and the worst parts of it, or what you found were the best and the worst parts?
I'd say the best parts are definitely the group of individuals you get to enjoy it with. I being on the other side is something I definitely miss. Having all those teammates, the support, people talking to you who have the same passion about what you're doing. The part that's probably bad, um, I would say for me personally was the biking because we did a lot of biking. We did around like maybe 9 to 10 hours of biking a week sometimes, and when you sign up to row, it's a lot of cardio that you're doing that's not in the sport that you actually want to do.
We had Sophie Capewell, cyclist, on last week, and I was basically saying to her, I hate cycling. I love to watch cycling, but cycling or going on a bike ride was just never for me. I was like completely enticed out by a sweet treat and a coffee, and there was no way you'd get me doing it otherwise.
I remember the first training camp I went on with the Danish national team. It was a biking training camp, and it's the first time I've ever been on a road bike. I spent, I think, 80% of it alone and crying because I was so slow. But I wasn't slow enough to be with the slow group, and I wasn't fast enough to be with the fast group. So I was just alone for an entire week, and it was miserable. So yeah, no, me and biking, not really a good, big fan there.
I think I most recently when I was on a road bike, I literally ended up just like face first on the ground.
Good. That's actually impressive, like that you're standing now and you did that.
Yeah. I mean I didn't tell Sophie that when I spoke to her. I was just like, yeah, I just don't like it.
No. What happened? How did you end up face down?
My dog ran into the front tire of the
Uh,
bike and just sent me straight onto the
Classic.
lawn.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
Not a good look. Not a
Wow.
good look. Speaking of not good looks, sporting ick for the week.
I think it's a nice classic one of rowers who don't change their kit between sessions or use reuse the same uni for multiple sessions. That I can't deal with it. I think it's so gross. They smell. I know it's also very difficult because it's costly to have a lot of uni. So when you start out, it's definitely something you will do. But there's nothing wrong as well. There's no taboo with wearing spandex shorts instead of a uni. You can actually wear something else when you row. But yeah, it's biggest sporting geek, I think.
Don't be afraid to wear PE kit if you need to.
Yeah, I'd rather see you row in some basketball shorts than reuse your uni.
Very good. Very good. Just a public service announcement for general health and hygiene there.
Basically, yeah.
What are we, I know what we are dying on the hill about, but what are we dying on the hill about this week?
So I've tried to formulate it in a good way because sometimes it's quite difficult. But I think what I'm dying on the hill for this week is we need to be better, both as athletes, teammates, coaches, in understanding that our value as a individual and a person isn't necessarily derived from the results or the erg scores that you're currently producing at one moment in time. And it's not saying that it's not important because that's quite a hard thing to just say to athletes. Oh, it doesn't matter if you don't win, or it doesn't matter if you aren't hitting that target you want to hit. But it's more the blurring of the lines where if you're not hitting those goals and you're not hitting those targets, then you're not good enough as an individual. And I think that's a topic that needs to be addressed a bit more often and also be highlighted by coaches that your individuality and you as a person isn't necessarily tied to what you're doing in your sport.
I think that's a really good one. I'm always a massive advocate for athletes to have something like going on outside of their sports. It's not just them and the numbers or them and the performance. They've got like another identity outside of what they do day in, day out, all the time. I think it is so difficult because it's so easy to get hung up on those numbers. And also, a lot of athletes start at a very young age. And it's kind of similar to like when you're in school, like you do academics well and then you get praised and then you base your self-worth off of your academics. It's a very similar kind of balance where athletes will produce a good score and then they'll be praised, and then if they don't get a good score they might not get noticed or spoken to in really really severe cases.
Yeah.
So I completely agree on that.
I think during my time as an athlete, I've definitely been one in that situation where I've definitely valued my self-worth based on, oh, I didn't win that C race, or I didn't hit that target goal that someone else did hit. And suddenly you start, for myself, I definitely started to have a rougher time just outside of sport and with life in general. And it wasn't until my last year where I really actually really started realizing, good job, good English, really started realizing that I was worth more and I have such a big identity outside of my sport. I have family, I have friends, I have obviously sometimes pets that value who I am and what I bring to the table. And it doesn't intertwine with what I can do on the water. And that's a really important thing that I think everyone should learn. Um, Not when you're coming to your retirement, but actually throughout it, because it makes it more enjoyable. It makes it more enjoyable to partake in your sport when you actually view it in that way and not, oh, I am not worth it. I'm not worthy enough to be spoken to today because I didn't hit that erg score.
What do you think was like the main reasoning, or what do you think helped you sort of come to that realization?
I actually would put a lot of that on the coach I worked with last year. He was very good at consistently reminding me of my self-worth as just a person, and also reminding me of my self-worth in terms of my sport, because I definitely had experienced quite a rough time for quite a long time under someone else where I really saw myself as the bottom of the bottom, even though I wasn't, and that wasn't necessarily the reality of it. But it's very difficult to crawl your way out of that if you don't have someone else saying, it's not great. I'm saying I needed someone else to say, pull me out, but I did, and it helped me start crawling out of that and helped me start realizing, wait, it actually doesn't matter if I don't hit that erg score because I'm still good enough for the next day. I can still also produce the results when it matters. I can do those things, but it doesn't mean that I'm lesser of a person. I would also say my teammates last year because we were kind of putting the shit together. We had this really weird at the first World Cup, the national because we weren't technically part of the national team. So our self-worth and like it would have really hit me hard if I was in a bad place. But there was this simple thing where they'd ordered pizzas for the national team and then didn't give us any. And we were also like, how are we gonna have food? You just ordered enough food for them, but not us. And then some individuals would come over and, hey, do you want a slice of pizza? And I was like, I mean, probably, but I'm okay. But yeah, we all got to deal with it together. And I think that really made us realize, okay, just because they don't value us doesn't mean we aren't good enough. And just because they don't value us doesn't mean that we aren't, as ourselves and as a group, like worthy of being where we are and who.
And I was just going to say, for context, you were representing your country at that point.
Yeah, we Denmark's quite funny, but yes, we were representing Denmark, but we were not on the Danish national team, which is interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. How does that work?
um, they had implemented at that stage. They now changed it again. They're trying something new every year because they're trying to restructure it. But we were basically something lower than the national team at that stage, but we would feed into it. So I don't know if they have like Project LA right in Britain where they have that. I would say they tried to classify us as that, but we're not that, because it's not even they're not even supporting us in any manner. It's just that we were representing Denmark so we could come and race at a race.
Interesting.
There's a lot of interesting politics you're gonna hear. Yeah.
I feel like there always is interesting. Everyone's got their own version of interesting politics. But coming back to your coach, who you were saying is sort of helping with your feelings of self-worth and I guess identity outside of being an athlete, were there any, I know we have coaches that listen to this, so I'm just wondering, were there any like specific things that they did in order to help with that? Or was it just sort of like a reassurance or reminder?
I think like a big part of it actually did stem from how he approached coaching us. So it was no longer a dialogue where you were spoken to, but you were in dialogue with him. So you also had your input and he had his input, and he would take both into consideration before making a decision. So you started realizing, oh, I actually know what I'm doing. I am actually good. I actually this is my athlete side. Like this was the athlete part where he helped bring me out and bring out what I could bring to the team by just having it part of the dialogue and not being just directly spoken to, not being told, okay, this is what you have to do, but having a conversation, well, this is what you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, and this is what I want to get to. And he being like, yes, I agree, but I think you need to also do this. And I was like, okay, I understand that. Then let's focus on this area while I also focus on that area. Instead of it just being like, do this. And if you can't do this, you're not good enough. Okay. So it's very different coaching style I've experienced with him than in Denmark because I've a lot of the time it's been spoken to and not spoken with. And then another thing he definitely did outside of coach, like just on the water and on the erg, was have just conversations with me and have those meetings where we could just chat about life, chat about how I was doing. We did have quite a unique relationship since I've known him for many years. Previously, he's younger than me. we're we're got quite a funny relationship. We make fun of each other, but we can take it very seriously when it needs to be serious. And I think that's something that he's very good at is separating the two, but then keeping it in a way that makes you also understand that he respects you and you automatically give him respect too. So yeah, I think that's the reason he helped me get out of it.
So that's like athlete autonomy, like giving you like a little bit more control over the sort of conversations, more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Less of a dictatorship, and giving
Yes.
athletes autonomy so they can like actually have an input. And it's
Yes.
not to say that, you don't follow the program. It's just including everyone's sort of opinions, or maybe keeping an eye out on whether or not people are really flagging or really struggling,
Yeah.
and being sort of secure enough as a coach to like open the conversation and let it be a bit more two-way street rather than just, as I said, a bit of a dictatorship. And I think there's space for that. It's sometimes more than others. Like if you're dealing with maybe under 15s, it might need to be a little bit more of a dictatorship. The older, and also the older and more sort of high performance it gets, like it does need to be more conversational at times, and less of a my way or the highway. One of the other sort of things that sprang to mind when we were talking about sort of self-worth and that that sort of umbrella was, and we touched on it very briefly, was post-Olympic blues, but it can actually be an athlete identity crisis just from leaving sport at whatever level. Like if you're doing something 6 or 7 days a week and you're committing multiple hours of your day to something and you have to abruptly leave it, maybe it's due to your own retirement. I know we use the word retirement and everyone's like, but you're 20, and you're like, well,
Yeah. I'm old, right?
I'm, I'm still retired from this
Yeah.
everyday lifestyle, or whether or not you've had to leave the sport due to an injury or a change of circumstances and it wasn't your decision. We briefly spoke before. I know that that's something that you have very recently sort of experienced, and actually Denmark provided therapy post games.
Yeah, that was actually something I really valued and took up on because it was offered to all athletes after the Olympics, regardless of if you knew of your plans, like regardless if you knew you wanted to continue or if you did know you were stopping. And they could provide this service up to, I think it was 6 months post Olympics. So it was quite a long time. And if they felt that they could see that maybe you required more help, then they would maybe put you on to an actual specialist in the area that you needed. Myself, I did take up on the offer when I was retired. And it was predominantly because, as you said, you go from having this routine. And I've been an athlete since I was 4 years old. I only started rowing when I was 19, but I've been an athlete since I was 4 years old. And I suddenly went from, okay, I have this routine, I have this thing that is who I am, to right, who am I outside of it again? I do like this person, but now I have to deal with that person 24/7 and not deal with that person maybe a little less. And that was one of the things that I worked on with the therapist. And another thing was a big topic of discussion was actually finding something again in my life, because I probably won't, that is as time consuming and as goal driven as something that you're so passionate about, because maybe you will get passionate, maybe I will get passionate about work, you never know. But I don't know if it's ever going to be the same, and I just had to sit down and try and figure out how I was going to accept this, and that I can find passion in other things and other parts of my life that isn't necessarily 100% of my life like the sport was. I'm very privileged that I was in Denmark, because I've heard that in other countries such as GB, you don't get help post Olympic blues. Well, post Olympics and with the Olympic blues. I was very shocked at that because it's definitely something I know impacts all athletes. I've seen the spectrum. I've seen how it's impacted other people within the sport, and I know people could have benefited from it if they actually had that opportunity to have someone to sit there and, okay, my plan was right. I didn't know what I was going to do. my therapist said, right, this week you're going to focus on starting your CV and refreshing it and looking at it. Next week, after we meet, you're going to look at maybe some jobs you might want to apply to. The week after, maybe apply to one or two, and then just get the ball rolling. Because my issue was I couldn't start anything because everything just felt so overwhelming to myself that I knew I was going into a new part of my life. But he helped me get to the stage where I was applying to a bunch of jobs. I was being able to go out and train. The one thing I haven't been able to give up is training with a heart rate monitor. That's something I still do. Because if you don't have it on, does it count? Maybe one day I'll get out of that, but I think that's a toxic thing that all athletes still have. I don't know. If you don't have it being recorded, does it even count as a workout? Well, don't know.
The Strava fans out there are gonna be like, "Yep, doesn't count."
Doesn't count. Even though I still just did like 2 hours in the gym. No, it doesn't count. Does not count. But that was like small things. He definitely did try and get me to also, because I wanted to continue doing something physical, but I didn't want to focus on numbers because it's been so number driven for such a long time. And that was that was a tough one to figure out what it is I can do. And I ended up running because I don't have any real experience with running a lot. I don't think a lot of rowers do. We're a very sit down sport. And that was an interesting transition because now I'm in that stage where I've started making goals for myself because I can't stop it. But I'm enjoying it more. I wouldn't necessarily enjoying the running, but I'm enjoying doing some sort of exercise where I don't have some eyes telling me or some voices telling me that what I'm doing isn't good enough or that I need to be faster here or I need to correct this there. I'm just enjoying being active.
It's like taking ownership over it again, post being in this very intense relationship with sport, really, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
it's a bit of a weird one. Do you, because when I was in sort of high performance sport, I worked with a sports psychologist very briefly. And that was more to do with similar on the lines of like self-worth. It was actually to do with like feelings of imposter syndrome, which is probably just another, to be honest, probably just another way of talking about self-worth and numbers and you know valuing yourself based off of performances. And that was actually really good to sort of help me get going a bit more because I'd really got myself in a massive slump with it. But I don't think athletes sort of reach out enough to like therapists or counselors or sports psychologists enough when they're in the sport. It's almost like, oh, it would be a problem for future me. Like you said, like they only provided support once the Olympic Games was done. Do you wish you kind of like got involved with the mental health side of it a bit sooner or?
You do get access if you're in a certain state or like a certain level within Team Denmark. And I was not on that level for some time, so I didn't have access to it. I was definitely an individual who shied away from it because I'm always like, I can get myself out of the slump. I can get myself out of the slump. But it wasn't until one of my really good friends, she just like took me aside because I went and had a dinner with her and actually her birthday, so it was even worse that she took me aside her birthday and just went, I can feel that you're not in a good place. Like you are not happy. And I need you to remember that rowing isn't who you are. You are something else, and I want to hang out with you and not the rower you. Yes, I do like that person, but it was quite an eye opener for me that someone so close to me and who I hadn't seen for a while because, you know, sport and she's not in it anymore, that she could pick up on that so quickly. And that's when I realized, okay, wait, you do need help and you do need to start maybe reaching out. But at that point, I didn't have access to it. So I didn't actually do anything about it apart from say to myself, right, you need to start having some other habits and start doing some other things that you can do yourself. And whenever I have had the opportunity to have conversations, I've taken them because I know I can get into some holes, but I'm also good at getting out of them myself, but sometimes you do need that extra help and it doesn't make you weaker. I think that's something that we really have the privilege of within our women's side is it's spoken quite frequently about that people, oh, I'm going to this therapist for this, or I'm doing this here, or I'm getting help basically because I have an eating disorder. It's spoken very openly about, which maybe makes it more accepted here, like in Denmark. Well, in Denmark, it definitely felt more accepted that you could go to therapy. It wasn't frowned upon. It was actually something we all talked about, but it's whether you have access to it or not makes a big difference, I would say.
I
Yeah.
just think that the fact that you guys were offered it like post Olympics as like a thing, like you're probably going to need this for 6 months because there's a lot of studies done about, athlete identity post big sporting events, and because a lot of the time people will leave sport after this big event that they've been working multiple years towards. And so it's really interesting that they, as a country, have identified it and they're trying to put some stuff in place, despite maybe where their sporting setup might not be quite right in some places. It's really interesting that they're prioritizing that immediately after the games.
Yeah, I think it's something they actually, I noticed a massive change from when I first joined the team in 2019 all the way to 2025, well, 2024. There was a massive change in how we approached mental health in sport. In
Mhm.
2022, that's kind of where I saw the shift happen, where we started working nearly all boats worked with a sports psychologist together. And it's not just, how do you become better as an athlete, but also internally as well. Um, and that was quite a big shift because before, when I joined in 2019, it was the first time I've seen people just cry and then get off of ergs and then just leave and not complete training. It was a bit of a shit show in Danish rowing. So it was really nice to see the change over the years that I was part of it. Um, but I think that was also because they saw that it was a bit of a toxic environment and we were a lot of individuals who were maybe dealing with some issues that weren't actually being addressed or weren't actually proactively being looked after and just kind of shoved under the rug because as long as we were producing the results, it didn't matter if you're crying and can't finish a 2K. Like, who cares about that? You just qualified for the Olympics in 2019. That doesn't matter. But it was a big shift in 2022. That's when we all started actually getting help. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think as a country, oh, that's another fact I should have said. I think the Olympic blues help has been a thing since 2016. I think that's when they started. I might be wrong. It might have been that's when they realized it was something they needed to do. But it's definitely been part of the last two Olympic cycles where they actively are trying to help the athletes after they have finished the Olympics because they want to try and hold on to them or help them in their transition.
So what you were saying before is it's really positive, but it was born out of necessity.
Yes, definitely born out of necessity on our team. I mean, I came from the US system and I've also seen the GB system and you don't get off an erg. You finish it. Like that is what you do. You can cry later, but you're not leaving, you're finishing. Like, if you leave, then that's it. Goodbye, don't come back. Um, so it was a big shock for me, I'm not gonna lie. That first winter season, I've never seen so many people stop training. And it was all mental health related. And we were just all being like, oh, let's not talk about it. Like, this is normal. It really wasn't, but it's nice because like now a lot of us are out of it. A lot of the girls I started with, a lot of them have also stopped. Some after the Tokyo Olympics, some after the Paris Olympics, and it's great to talk to them now because you're always smarter on the other side, right? You can always say, see, right, back then I really should have actually gotten help for what was going on. I really didn't have a good image of myself. I wasn't happy with myself. And I think that's where my self-worth got absolutely destroyed because that environment, when you come into it, it kind of seeps into everyone, regardless of how hard you try and fight against it. Hey, it's not all bad. Like Danish rowing is good. We just had a small blip, okay? We had a very small blip.
Let's talk about your favorite sporting moment.
Yep.
Let's do a quick 180 and swing it back round.
My favorite sporting moment was probably actually very cliche, but qualifying for the Olympics in 2024 because we were definitely seen as underdogs. We performed so terribly in our preliminary race. I'd actually had an argument with my coach prior to it because I didn't want to do his tactic, which was we get to the last 500 meters and then we just row home, just hit tempo 36. We're not going to sprint. We're not going to do anything. We'll just save that for the final. And I went, why? Like, we have so many days. Why would you do that? But it worked out, right? We qualified first time ever historically, along with Italy. That was the first time Italy has ever qualified for the Olympic Games in a women's eight as well. So we were both two historic boats. That was a pretty sick thing to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
amazing.
yeah. And it was a shock to the team Denmark in the Danish rowing world because suddenly they had how many girls? Let me just do some quick math. 14 girls going to the Olympics when they had previously only budgeted for six. So they weren't exactly ready for us qualify. And that actually ended up playing in our favor because we ended up staying in the Olympic Village and getting to experience the Olympics in the true Olympian fashion of being with all the other athletes, seeing some of the big stars, and getting that side of the experience. Yes, it was an hour transport to the course, but that does not matter. We were there for the good vibes in the end.
That is so cool. So Denmark before had qualified smaller boats, but not a women's eight.
Yeah, it's quite wild. So I think it's also, I don't know, like maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I can't find anything about it, but I think it might have been the first time that a women's side has qualified all their sweep boats at the final Olympic qualification regatta. Because we qualified our pair, our four, and our eight, which is quite wild to do. But yeah, that's what. Don't know where we were in 2023, but yeah, we qualified in 2024.
That's so exciting. That obviously is also like a really good indicator for the program that the changes that they made were actually benefiting the athletes in terms of their performance as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would say our eight project was kind of a Hail Mary though. So I think that's why they hadn't budgeted for us at all. Not a woman's eight. And that's why we ended up staying in the village because the housing or the Airbnb they had rented for the Olympics couldn't house us nine other individuals that needed to, well, 10 because we had a spare as well that needed to be there.
That makes sense. Can you tell me a little bit about the lead up to this historic qualification? Because I know there was some bits involved with that as well.
Yeah, as I said, it's quite a Hail Mary project. And when I say that, in November of 2023, we were all invited, like a massive mixed bag of girls were invited into a meeting, and we were informed that there was a project that they wanted to create, which they were kind of floating the idea that this may be an LA 2028 project or a reserve boat for the pair and the four that they were 100% trying to qualify. And this group of individuals, one of them, Sarah, she actually ended up being on the boat. She'd only started rowing with one oar in September and only started rowing, I think, start of 2023. Like May or April. I always get it wrong, but she's amazing. She's one of those novices that just went for it. And then we had some other people who'd only just been rowing for 2 years, maybe 3 years, who started quite late. And then an 18-year-old who'd only just started rowing like for 2 years. And a couple of other U23. So it's a very young mixed bag of individuals. And then me, who's 29, and just having been on the team multiple times and in and out and all these things. I was like, right, this is cool. Don't know if this is a real thing. And after that meeting, We started working together and we started all training together, kind of trying to fit our schedules together because we were informed this is a project that we want to create. There's no funding to it. You guys are kind of doing it on your own backs. If you are going to go in training camps or if you are going to become anything, we'll decide this a bit later in January and then we'll let you know what the costs are going to be. So we were very, yeah, it's really nice, right? Hey,
They're like, we'll send you the bill.
yeah, basically. And I'm just sat there like, why would I say yes to this? This sounds like an awful project. Like, who in their right mind is going to say yes? And then come January, we get informed, we get the bill. That's actually what we got. We got a packet with a bill in it saying this is how much it's going to cost for you guys to go to World Cup 1, because that was the initial thing. And they also still remained in the fact that they wanted us to be reserves for the four and the pair. And that was our main duty, that it wasn't for qualification and that we should feel privileged in getting the opportunity to maybe step into the four or the pair. And I know. And I flat out in that meeting, I think that's where I might burned a bit of bridges, but I was in that state of not minding anymore. Just said I would refuse because the coach at that point did try to um, use me as an example. And I went, no, I would refuse because I'm backing my project. I don't want to step out of it. I feel as if a group, we need to be in agreement that we're going to stay together. And maybe it might not be beneficial for the four or the pair, but our chances of qualifying goes significantly down if we remove one individual from this boat. And that's the stance I took. And I think it also helped a lot of the girls see how serious I was about it. We ended up actually getting a girl from who was currently studying in the US to even fly back and join the project. Our coxswain, she lived and still lives in New York City and took time off work to come and be our coxswain up until qualifiers. And that's what we had from January, a nice little packet telling us the costs of how much it'd be. And that was quite a struggle. I was in a situation, a financial situation, where I looked at that packet and went, I'm not gonna be able to do this. And I spoke also with my club, and usually my club was quite good with paying. It's a very unique situation. It's a club in Denmark. I guess maybe you could, if you know rowing world, say it's very similar to Leander, where they kind of like steal a lot of the top rowers. I don't know if it's similar anymore, but my club, DSR, they used to steal a lot of the top rowers in Denmark because they had the money and could pay for things.
I was
Like,
gonna say, we always say anyway that you should reach out to your community if you are in that sort of situation, like not just sort of suffer on your own. There will be a way, and it's not necessarily one that you will find, but there will be somebody that can help, and reaching out to like your old club or you know stuff like that is a good place to start.
yeah, yeah. And then that actually inspired a lot of us went out because both myself, I've done it before where I found sponsorship for food. So we could get food for training camps, which is quite a big deal from a local supermarket close to where I lived. And another
I think
girl,
um I think athletes everywhere would just be like, yep, food is the biggest bill.
I mean, it's such a high cost when you're on training camp. I don't think people understand how much money you can throw into it when you're an athlete. And we've done it before. We've gone on a low cost training camp where we used that sponsorship and we reduced food costs by a ridiculous amount. I think it was like 60%, 70%. It was wild, but that's because we transported it. So all our food was transported in the trailer with us. Um, but another girl on my team, she also, like on my boat, she also has a high Insta following. So she went out and tried to find sponsors for us via that. But it's kind of difficult when we had no leg to stand on. Yes, we're aiming to try and qualify for the Olympics, but who cares? You're trying to do something. It's not necessary you've ever produced a result before. So it was quite tricky. And then we were very lucky that mid February, I think it was, that we were again invited to a meeting. This time we were informed that if we produced a certain result at the World Cup, that we would be allowed the chance to try and qualify for the Olympics, which is very nice. Uh, very nice. And this actually was also a meeting where we were informed we had a sponsor. We had an anonymous donor who stepped forward and offered to pay basically all of our costs up until the qualifiers, like also pay for us attending a qualifiers, because that was something we also still would have to have funded ourselves. Without that anonymous donor, we wouldn't have been able to go on. We went on 3 training camps, which is such a big difference for athletes. Don't get me wrong, they were not luxury training camps. We definitely tried to save money everywhere we could, both with the food and with where we were staying and how we were staying. Like we stayed in a motel at one of like our last training camps. We stayed in a motel and we brought our own bike so we could bike down to the training center and then bike back. And the situation with the food though was, I love my coach. He'd left the gasoline tanks in the back of the van between the 2 training camps because we were in Italy for 2 weeks, came home for 2 weeks, Italy for 2 weeks. He left the gasoline tanks in with the food, and the food just had seeped a lot of the gasoline into it. So we couldn't have any of the oats that we'd bought or any bread because it became completely inedible. Before qualifiers, actually, I ate a bowl of oats because we couldn't find oats anywhere. So I ate a bowl of oats from the van, and it just straight up tasted like gasoline that I was consuming. Which is a joke. He was like, "That's what you need to eat before every race now." I was like, "Shut up, I'm not doing that." It wasn't exactly smooth sailing, but once that anonymous donor came in, it became a lot easier. We had a lot more relaxation because we were 8 individuals who were balancing either working to try and fund this or studying, because we are very fortunate in Denmark that you can get paid to study, studying or just still being at that age where you're living at home and parents are still helping. So we had very different schedules trying to fit all of this together, and that was very difficult. So it was, I don't know, I haven't mentioned it, but we were very athlete led this entire project. And I think no one thought we could do it because you're a novice boat as well. So your results can swing quite heavily from very good to you don't even want to mention it. And no one else expected it to actually happen on the day it happened, apart from ourselves. And then the day of the race, I think it's quite funny if you listen to some of the audio from the racing video. It's quite funny because the commentators don't start mentioning us until I think halfway, where they go, "Wait, where's Denmark coming from? Denmark's in the picture. Like, what's Denmark? Denmark's overtaking China. What is going on?" And during that race, I think our coxswain did one of the best jobs I've ever experienced. I sat stroke, which I don't think I should have, but I was. And she called the sprint at 750 to go, which is quite a wild thing to choose to do. But it was definitely efficient and it worked. And it stemmed from the fact she noticed we started overtaking China or we're walking on them. So she wanted us to just believe. And in that, she started getting excited. The last thing about like why it was such an amazing experience to actually qualify was, if you've ever raced at Lucerne, you don't have any indication of who's won if it's a tight race, because there's no what are they called, just screens anywhere to tell you where you positioned. And when it's a final qualification regatta and it's the top 2, it counts, and you're in a photo finish situation. You genuinely have no idea what's going on. You just actually, all I heard was a massive scream, and then I saw red flags with white stripes. I knew it was the Danish flags going up and down, and I just like lift my hands up. I'm like, "We've done it." And then I like really excited. Then the rest of my boat, there's the next photo, is like all my boat is really excited. And then there's just a massive panic because they're all like, "Why are you saying we've qualified?" I went, "Well, I've seen it." And they were all like, "No, but what if it's not true?" And I'm like, "No, but I'm pretty sure it is. And then Italy had already turned around and were rowing in, and they went, congrats to us. And I was like, well, Italy is saying congratulations to us, so we
It
qualified.
must be true.
It can't not be true. Like, it has to be real. And but really, it was. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that, and I don't think I'll ever experience anything like that again. But it was quite an amazing day. Yeah, I don't even know what question we're talking about.
We would, it's good, it's good. We were doing favorite sporting moments. So you've
Great.
absolutely nailed it. So don't worry about that. Don't worry, we'll bring you right back down because I have best fuck up as our next question.
It's actually quite a funny one. Well, I have to really think about it. But I think the best one, because it still traumatizes me to the day, was one of my first real races as a rower. Basically, all the prep schools, big competition, end of the year. I'm in the 2B, like big nerves, like this is what we were talking about the entire year. We're racing, everything's going great. We're in first place, like quite far in first place. My oar lock just pops open and my oar comes out because I hadn't closed it properly. I had to get my oar back into my oar lock while everyone else was still rowing. And I did eventually do it. Oh my God, it's so embarrassing when I think about that moment. It's never left me. Because I was genuinely just sitting there in like panic on my seat, being thrown back and forth by my teammates while trying to get this oar into the oar lock again. Um, yeah, got it back in, re-raced to the finish line. I got silver, which I was like, let's go. But that memory's never left me. Never left me.
That I can understand that. I think that's I guess the staying calm in that situation and how to recover from that is always check your equipment before you race.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever gone out without making sure my oar locks are like locked in properly and screwed as tight as hell. Never again. I mean, never again for me. I don't know, Klesniff, we've had Klesniff coming over multiple times to test us. And our Fee, she won silver in the women's single in 2012. So she's one of our really good rowers. She has multiple times not closed her oar lock he's been over and multiple times ended up in the water because you can't do anything. So at least I only did it when I was 19 once and never again.
You've got age on your side there where you're like, I just didn't know. Right, we're gonna move swiftly onward. How would you spend your day off as an athlete? I know we talked about like obviously identity and self-worth. So was there anything specifically that you like were really drawn to or any hobbies that you sort of took up to help with that? Or are you just like a crash out and eat as much as you can kind of girl?
I think it was definitely always a mix. I think it depended on how rough the week had been. So sometimes, if you were absolutely maxed out on how many hours and how much socialization you've done, I could just sit in front of the TV and watch Friends, like from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep. Which is actually
I've got a busy day
yeah.
with, I don't know what Friends is on. Is that like Netflix?
Yeah, Netflix. I've done it with multiple series. But then other days I love baking, and then I'll bake before I come back to the National Center, and then just bring all the food with me. But I also really love doing self-care and getting my nails done and hanging out with the family. I think that was actually a big one that I did because I was very fortunate that my aunt lives in Denmark as well because my parents are still in Scotland, but my aunt and my cousins all live in Denmark. So I spend a lot of my time going home to them and having dinner, playing board games, going walks with their dog, and just kind of unwinding and getting away from anything that was rowing related.
Sport often eats into that one-on-one time with family and like I know you're saying sort of like it's your aunt and not your like mum and dad, but arguably those are the people you wouldn't get to see at all. So it's nice that actually this sort of sporting quest, if you like, that you found yourself on it meant that you got to spend so much time with like that section of your family? I assume you like them,
I
so
do. Yeah, I mean, I was the one that kept being like, "Hey, I'm free on this evening. Can I come over for dinner?" And my aunt's like, "Yes." And then she invites all my cousins because I don't even ask them. I'm just asking her. And it's quite funny because she called me her adopted daughter. I spent 6 years basically going out and visiting them and being with them and hanging out with them. Those things that I cherish a lot from the time that I was in Denmark because since I was 18, I've lived in a different country from my parents. So I haven't had that opportunity to spend a lot of time with my family. And although they're not my mom and dad, I still talk to them on a daily basis. But spending time with family and having that ability to do so, I really, really cherished. I think a lot of rowers don't often get that.
a lot of people in sport, it is such a time-consuming thing.
It is, and sometimes the thing that's often always sacrificed is time with your family. That's one of that and your friends a lot of the time, but you're lucky, hopefully, to have friends within your sport. Uh, but I would say like they were only a 40-minute commute to get to their place, so I'd do it as often as I could. Um, and my ex-boyfriend actually with his parents we'd also do it like once or twice a week which
Like, shout out to my ex-boyfriend's parents,
yeah,
legends.
honestly, shout out, they were great fans. Loved hanging out with them. They also knew whenever I had come home from like training camp because he would start asking them how they were and if what's it called, they wanted to hang out because obviously I wanted to hang out. Yeah, I'm very family oriented.
I was going to ask you how we're funding a sporting career, but I feel like we touched on it briefly earlier, so it's up to you whether or not you want to go down into that or
I mean, I can quickly touch on it, like very quickly. I know
yeah,
I can talk.
sure.
Um, so I know a lot of the time I've mentioned that some of us worked. I worked part time for an iGaming company, which is completely out of my ballpark. But they needed someone who could. Oh, iGaming, by the way, is working with online gambling. But it's
Okay.
a company that created an AI that works within the online gambling area. Just to make it simplified. And shout out to them because they were so supportive and they were very understanding that I needed those hours when I needed those hours. So they let me work basically when I was done with practice during the evening or in my last year up to qualification, I worked full time on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and then I had to base my training outside of that, which again was very difficult when we had 8 other individuals who basically had to do the same thing. But we made it work. We all made it work. Tuesdays were not a day we really trained together. But yeah, so I funded it by working with AI when I've got a degree in environmental studies and nature management.
You're like, make that one make sense.
Yeah. Make it make sense. Whenever someone asks me, "What do you do?" I was like, I work with online gambling, specifically bingo. So if you're interested, just shout out over here."
Niche, I like it. Do you have a piece of advice that changed the game for you?
I think I kind of touched on it, but not really. I would say, looking back on my sporting career, I think the thing that you definitely need to appreciate more is the time you spend with your teammates and your friends. All those places you get to. I know we often see the hotel on the course, but sometimes there are those random days where, oh, the flight's been cancelled, and you might get a day in the city or a night in the city or whatever. Really cherish those moments that you have with them, not just when you're doing those nights in the city or day in the city, but the entire process, because it's going to be difficult to find someone or find people as like-minded as yourself and as committed to something as they are when you're in sports. You might have that connection again, but don't take it for granted because genuinely I had one of the best years last year because I focused so much on spending time with my boatmates, on doing things outside of the sport and in the sport. And after the Olympics, there's a big group of us from my boat that always do things together, hang out together. And I'm very sad because I can't actually attend one of my boatmates, Sarah. She's getting married. Shout out Sarah, she's getting married. And I can't attend her wedding because it's in the Faroe Islands. But the majority of us are going. Yeah, it's because it's this weekend. Well, no, this weekend, next weekend. I couldn't exactly be like, hey, I need 3 days off from work when I just started. But yeah, no, I think spending time and really cherishing it. Wow, good. Cherishing it with your teammates because, as I said, it's just sometimes I think I took it for granted. Like you take it for granted. You're in it. You're just doing your sport. Like you don't think about it. And now then you come out of it, you realize how much socialization you got from day to day. And sometimes it could be overwhelming. Like sometimes I'd be like, hey, on training camp, I need to just be in my room this evening. Other days, but
I need to be in a dark room on
put
my
on some
own.
put on some friends so I don't like I'm socializing another way. And then every other day I'd be out just wanting to play board games. Oh God, I think I had the reputation of being the annoying one who being like, hey, do you want to play a game? Like, do you want to play some cards? Do you guys want to hang out? Um, but it's definitely something I would say you need to remember to enjoy because I think so many people say that as well. But it's a time in your life that you really get to enjoy doing something you hopefully love as an athlete and with people you do really enjoy spending time with.
That is a good one. When I left sport, it is one of the bits that I sort of miss the most is
Yeah.
like all the changing room chatter, if you like, and all of that sort of stuff. Chat during weights or, you know, when you're getting changed and you've forgotten a sock or you've like just like the camaraderie in
Yeah.
that situation, I think was my definitely one of my favorite bits. We have a final question, which is what are we listening to in the gym or in your case on your runs, I guess, at the moment?
Well, I'm actually gonna do one throwback because I know a lot of the girls on my boat will they remember it. A rogue song I would listen to when we were lifting was actually, and I mean listening to, blasting from our speakers, would be Rod Stewart, "Rhythm of My Heart." Those bagpipes, they just, call to my soul. Outside of that, I've got a really rogue music taste. I listen to everything. I mean, we have a playlist together where we have Stormzy, ABBA, a bit of what is it called? Celine Dion as well. Some Eminem. It goes everywhere. There's also a bit of country on there. Uh, so really anything. But when I'm lifting,
When you're lifting, get the bagpipes on, the PBs are flowing.
yeah, no matter how like long and depressed I am in that like 2 hour long lift, rhythm of my heart will get me out of it and get me motivated to keep going.
I love it. I love when people have got like a really, really niche, like one, like Sophie was saying last week that Black Eyed Peas Pump It, she would like try and pedal to the rhythm. And you're like, the bagpipes are gonna help
Yes,
you with my squats.
it's those bagpipes, right? It's just it hits the soul when you get it playing. I'm like, yeah, okay. I know one of my friends, Clara. She was always like, God damn it! Like, can you stop? We're lifting. I was like, yeah, perfect timing. Don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that is at the end of my questions. Thank you very, very much, and I hope you enjoyed it as well.
I mean, I'm just blab. So it's my toxic trait is I don't shut up. So, like actually, it's
At least you're talking about good things.
yeah.
No,
It needs to be talked about. Yeah.
I think these conversations are really important, and like I think it is nice when it's in like a like in an environment where you feel safe enough to just talk
Yeah.
about it, and
Yeah.
that I think that's really special. So thank you very much.
I mean, thanks for having me.
Yes, you're
I've definitely
welcome.
thought it's been really fun. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh,